Hi everyone, it's Tom with the LEC preview of the fourth week of the LEC Summer Split 2022. Before I get to the usual thoughts on teams and then into the predictions, I just want to say thank you to everybody who reached out or just wished their best and supported me. As you may have seen last week, Infant Global decided that all this stuff from Europe and North America was no longer needed on the writer side, and that was my employer for the most part of 2022, where I published my articles. And yeah, obviously it's been a bit of a weird time to mid-split try to find something new, but hopefully I have some good news to announce soon regarding that. And the second point, as you can see, I'm in a different setup now. I'm back in the Netherlands. This was already pre-planned long before all the infant stuff happened, just to spend a few weeks back in the Netherlands and hang out with friends. So now let's talk about the teams. And I think heading into this fourth week, it's going to be a bit interesting because it's going to, every team deals with a 1 week break differently. I saw some teams taking a bit of a break, returning home, or doing other activities. Other teams might be still grinding a lot. Probably the teams at the bottom who've done a bit more of that. And that's going to be interesting to see. So let's start with Team BDS, now in 10th place, shared with SK Gaming at the bottom of the standings. Yeah, I think for them, for BDS at this point, it's for me more about which individuals are going to stand out over the course of the next weeks, which BDS can keep in order to develop. As a team, it's hard for me to see what progress they're going to make. Obviously, there's only 3 weeks being played, and maybe that week off has helped them a lot because it gives them more time to practice, more time to identify any issues that they might have, and really engrave into the minds of the players what they should focus on heading into the next week. So that it might be an advantage for them. They didn't have any momentum that they should keep going other than negative momentum, so that might help them as well. But overall, as a team, I think we'll have to look at how Erdote leads the team, because as Grab said in the interview I did with him, he is more vocal player, so let's see if that has amounted too much. Not to put too much pressure on him individually, of course, it's a team effort. So I'll be curious to see how that develops. SK Gaming, in the last week, if you remember, they had to sub in Gadget because Jesu was very sick. And Gadget then went 0-2 with SK, so there wasn't progress there either. Now with Jesu back in the lineup, I hope that for the team that they've been able to practice with him and start finding some progress. But similar to BDS, I didn't see much progress with SK Gaming overall as a team. That might have been hampered by a sick Jesu in the first 2 weeks. We'll see if now that he's recovered, they're going to do any better, but I'm not holding out much hope because in terms of individual play of the other players, I've also not been too impressed. Misfits. Misfits actually, recovered somewhat nicely, as I discussed with Veteran on the show Best in the West. It seems that they have found a way to play the game for themselves, which is play for the late game, not for the early game. Don't try to force the early game. Just try to not fall behind so much, and then in the late game, put people like Neon or even Veteo on something that can carry late, and you should be in a better position. So I think that is something I'm looking for. Misfits, have they identified this as a winning formula as well? Are they going to keep that going? And also, are they going to be able to adapt if their opponents find out what their strategy is, their formula for success? Because we have many teams in the LEC that are better at executing those strategies. So is Misfits going to be able to adapt is what I'm going to look forward to for this weekend especially. Astralis 3 and 4, also together with Misfits in that position. I think Astralis had a nice honeymoon phase where they beat some of the worst teams in the LEC. Now I expect them to drop off a bit, but given that they already have as many wins now as they had at the end of the spring split, I expect them to pick up a few more wins in the second half. I don't really think that this week they're going to be able to amount to much, even though I have to say I've been positively surprised by how this team as a team is functioning. They are capable of throwing a spanner in the works for during the game. It's just that they need more of that closing potential in the games that they play. I think for them that is the biggest point, where I see that during the game itself they can make it difficult for their opponents. It's just that they don't really know how to leverage the advantage that they get into a game-winning situation against teams that understand it better. Vitality, tough times for Vitality, even though they're 4-3. I still am not seeing a team. I see individuals that play well. It's the same criticism I had last spring. And I did the interview with Alfari where he said their early game is weak. That seems pretty clear to me and to others I've spoken to as well, that the early game is Vitality's weakest part. And that is something that I want to see them improve on heading into this week. Maybe during the weeks off, that is something they focus on in scrims as well. But that was definitely where they fell behind. And against these top teams, you can't allow yourself to do so. G2, I think people are a bit dramatic when it comes to G2. They're 4-3 now, but if you think back about the spring split, then they also weren't exceptional. But then in the playoffs, they obviously had that incredible run. I still have faith in G2's players and G2 as a team, because when it matters, these players come together and they perform. Obviously, ending last week, which isn't last week, but week 3 on 0-3 or with an 0-2 score. Now standing 4-3 in the rankings isn't nice, but this is also a team I'm very confident in are going to bounce back. I will say, I believe in G2's potential to get a high finish until proven otherwise, right? Because we have seen so in the past. So there's very little reason for me to doubt them now, because I know the caliber of this team and I know the caliber of the players when they are trying hard. Mad Lions is a solid team. I said that I made a tweet, I think it was during week 3 when they beat G2, where it's like, oh, this team is shaping up nicely, and then after that they got absolutely demolished. So that was a bit unfortunate, but other than that, I still think that Mad Lions roster is a solid playoff contender at this point. I think for them, the biggest part will be keeping or making sure that Oyoya can help his laners to a point where they are allowed to roam in the map, especially Niski. This is something what I can see going wrong for this team, where if this mid-jungle duo, which is so pivotal to how they win the games, is locked down, then Mad Lions doesn't really have a way of leveraging any advantages, or even finding any advantages, or finding a way back into the game. And I think that is something I want to see them working on, where you could also say, okay, maybe we need to find a way to play through our bot lane more, or help find Armut, unlock him on the map, something like this. I want a bit more versatility from them, because I think that is going to be the biggest weakness for them if it comes to a playoff scenario, or even if they make it to the international stage. I think that is what I'm looking for with them. Fnatic, I said Fnatic was a very emotional team. I've said it a few times now, and I think that's still very much true. They went 0-2 in a week where I saw somber phases, and then they went 2-0, completely stomping G2. And when they were in a happy mood, I think that is what I'm looking to with Fnatic. If I see a Fnatic on stage and they're walking on stage and they're smiling and they're having fun and they're all joking together, then I think, okay, I have faith in this Fnatic. But if I see a team that's more serious, more calm, maybe a bit tense, then I think this is a Fnatic that is gonna kind of crumble under their own pressure, or under their own weight, basically. The humanoids, Razork, Wunder top side of the map has been performing well, in my opinion. I think especially Razork and Wunder have been playing well. I want to see them play a bit more through that side, whereas previously they played pretty much only through bot, because that is a way that Fnatic can win. And I think this was episode 2 or 3 of Best in the West, where I said I doubt that they're gonna change their strategies from playing through bot, but now they've found success with it, so I'm really hoping that we're gonna see more play through the top side for Fnatic. Rogue are 5-2, and even though they are 5-2, people are saying Rogue is back, I still am not as confident in Rogue being back to being the regular season kings that they were before, because their wins aren't convincing. I think Rogue is often finding themselves in a position where they are kind of sweating for the game, that they're in a kind of difficult scenario. What is good about that then, obviously, is that they are able to clutch things out or find a way back into the game. That is good, but I want to see a Rogue that understands more how to play the game before it gets to a point where they are in a difficult position. I want to see them. Previously, they were the early game kings. I think Rogue's early game is not good at the moment. I think Rogue has trouble setting up objectives and is really more relying on like individual skill or understanding of what teammates want in team fights in order to pull back into the games. And that is something I want to see Rogue improve on. XL then, XL also firmly at the top still, 5-2. I think the biggest thing for me with XL is, are they going to be able to keep their momentum after such a break? They had the Korea bootcamp buff, obviously, which did very well for the team. But is that something that is slowly fading off? Is it something that's still going to be here if they have a week off where they cannot practice against these high rank opponents from Korea and from China, if you can't have those scrims? That's going to be the most interesting thing for me to see. But overall, I think this is still a team with a lot of carry potential. Patrick is super good. Marcoon is super good. Finn's playing solidly. Nuke Duck is actually playing solidly. Mickey X performing super well. And as a team, they just understand very well what to expect from each other and how to play it. It's just going to be more of a matter for me, like, are they going to be able to maintain this across multiple patches? Are teams going to be able to identify how Excel play the game and catch up with that? Are they going to be able to do the same? Or is Excel going to be able to stay ahead of the curve? Even though they are not, able to scrim against like a T1 or an EGG or whatever, those teams anymore. That's going to be the most interesting thing for me about that team. But so far, I think Excel's probably the most consistent team, at least in their wins and in their performance overall. So that's very promising. And then we go to the matches of the upcoming weekend. We have Astrada versus Excel first. I think Excel is pretty easily going to win this because they just have a better understanding of how, not only how to draft, but also how to play the early game, how to catch out opponents' mistakes, how to punish those mistakes. I think this is going to be a pretty one-sided match, if I'm very honest with you. BDS versus Mad Lions, I also think it's going to be pretty one-sided. BDS has a decent early game, but I think Mad Lions overall with Oyoya is absolute menace in the early game, and I think it's going to be very difficult for BDS to take Mad Lions down, unless it throws some curveball composition again. We had Synchro on the Skarner, obviously, which was a lot of fun to see. Maybe Mad Lions doesn't know how to play through that. I also think that even though you could say Armut is like the weak link at this point in Mad Lions, I don't think BDS has the capabilities of punishing that consistently. I think for them, it would be more about finding ways to maybe sneak in something like a dragon stacking, getting through a soul. But I don't see a way where BDS's laning phase is going to allow for such an advantage to happen, because I think Mad Lions is going to be better at that. Fnatic versus Misfits should be an interesting one. We had the iconic Fnatic versus Misfits games, like the comeback games, obviously. But I do think that Fnatic should be in a much better position to take this game than Misfits. Individual strength is much higher on Fnatic, and I also think that Misfits, they don't have enough tricks up their sleeve, I should say, in order to beat a team like Fnatic. Now, Misfits could try to play through like the bot lane. Neon is a very solid laner, obviously, but I don't think that with Upset and Hylissang with support of Razork, if they decide to play through bot, they're going to be able to overcome it. And even if they are, I think Fnatic's top side is still too strong. So even if Fnatic decides to make the trade, I still think Fnatic is going to win out in the long run. G2 versus SK, expect G2 to win this. SK has not looked great at all, as I discussed earlier. And then we have Rogue versus Vitality to close out the Friday. That's going to be a very interesting match. I think Vitality, if they want to do something, they will have to do it in the early game, but that's been a notorious weak point for them, so I think that's going to go pretty even. And then in the later stages, I expect Rogue to be better as a team, because they have a better understanding of how to play the map than Vitality does at this point, in my opinion. Vitality is not as volatile in the later stages than were in spring. I think that is definitely something you can say. But I think Rogue, even though they aren't as convincing as they were in spring, that they still overall know very well kind of which fights to pick, and they are better at that than Vitality. And I think that's going to be the pivotal point in this matchup. And then on Saturday, we have SK versus Excel. I don't think this is going to be a particularly exciting game either, to be honest. I think Excel is pretty easily going to win this game. Mad Lions versus Astralis might be a bit more interesting because, well, it's not only, we had on Astralis, we have Vizic Chachi, Xerxes, and Kobe, who used to be on Splice, and Splice used to be, was the company before it rebranded to Mad Lions. So that's going to be a bit of a fun match in that regard. Other than that, I'm not expecting too much from Astralis here, to be honest. There is a chance that they decide to, go for these curveball weird picks again. Maybe if they don't prepare like something meta, but rather try to catch Mad Lions off guard with some composition. That's really the thing I'm looking for with Astralis overall, in order to pick up wins that are against higher ranked teams than them, because they're not going to be able to outplay Mad Lions, I think, on the macro. I don't think they're going to be able to outplay Mad Lions in the laning phase. I think Armut and Physic Chachi are both not very good in the laning phase as top laners. So yeah, they're relying more on the teamfight potential, and I think Armut's better there. So even the weak link, hypothetically, on Mad Lions is something that I don't think Astralis is going to be able to exploit. BDS versus Rogue. Rogue should win this. BDS is just not looking very good at the moment. Misfits versus G2, I think is G2 favored. Overall, even though Viteo obviously had a very good last split where he had a lot of pop-up performances, Caps has been in shape again, been playing very well. A way for Misfits to shut down G2 is to shut Caps down, but I don't think that they have the capability to do so. Another way for Misfits to win could be by getting the bot lane very far ahead, but I honestly do not see a way where G2 isn't able to leverage that into something else, because if you're going to focus a lot on the bot lane, as Misfits, you're leaving Caps and Broken Blade open on the top side, and those also have carry potential. So I think overall G2 should be favored in terms of raw individual skill, and also how they are able to shift between the strengths that they have, and rather Misfits' lack of strengths that they can shift between from what we have seen currently, compared to the likes of a team like G2. Vitality versus Fnatic then, I think, is probably Fnatic favorite. I think Fnatic can play through top, mid, and bot. Vitality has more of a one-liner approach in how they want to play the game. I think they're pretty more one-dimensional, not really able to shift between strategies, saying, okay, we're losing top, so we have to adjust and shift through playing through bot, for example, or through playing through mid. I think that is a weakness for them. I think Fnatic's probably best way of winning this game is playing through bot for this game, because they have, well, we've said, in that same Alfari interview I mentioned earlier, he said that Karzi and Labrov aren't really demanding resources as much as they probably should at times, which means that is something that Fnatic can capitalize on. They're a very strong bot side duo. Resork is very capable of just haunting the bot side. We saw him haunt G2 basically everywhere on the map in the third week. So I think Fnatic should be pretty favored in this game. One thing I can say is that from Vitality side, maybe Perks, because he was supposed to go Fnatic last offseason, and also this is like the two super teams, right, at the start of the year. These were the teams that were meant to dominate the LEC. Maybe he has some extra fire in him in order to take Fnatic down. But overall, I would still favor Fnatic in this game. I think overall, if I look at this week, actually, the games seem pretty one-dimensional. So I'm very curious to see if there's going to be a surprise. I'm sorry if this episode of the LEC preview was a bit more rambly. As I said, it's been a bit of a weird week for me. But thank you very much for staying with it. On Tuesday, I'll be back with another Best in the West episode with Veteran, provided we both have nothing overlapping in our agenda. We should be clear. We're aiming for Tuesday, and I'll also be publishing a video interview, hopefully on this channel again. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments below which matches you're looking forward to, which results you think you might disagree with or might agree with, and I'll stay tuned for more content.